Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. We're going to get into the news across town. The New York Knicks trade for Karl Anthony Towns. They send out a future first round pick from Detroit, which is interesting, as well as the two big names, Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. So it's basically a 2-for-1 trade with a first round pick. How does that change the landscape of the Eastern Conference, and what does it mean to the Nets that own many of the Knicks picks up until 2031? I'm joined once again here by Nate. Nate, introduce yourself and let's kind of give us your thoughts as a whole on the trade, how it affects both teams, and what it means to both teams. Like, just give me your thoughts on the trade.
Evening, Gary. Thanks for having me on again. We just got back from a tough Mets loss. One of our other Ets teams having a tough week with the Jets and Mets breaking our hearts. Karl Anthony Towns, I love the trade for the Knicks. I'm not a huge cat guy, but I think he fits their puzzle perfectly. He's kind of the missing piece. They needed a center. They got one of the best one-on-one centers. Clearly Thibodeau kind of okayed this. He coached Towns in the past. I love the combination of having a top one-on-one scorer in the league at guard with a top one-on-one scorer in the league and at the center position. It's with a Tom Thibodeau team, you just surround that with 3-and-D players and big wings and guys that can defend, which is essentially what the Knicks are doing. It's Brunson, it's Cat, and then there's Anunoby and Bridges and Deuce McBride and all the other guys that are going to defend, rebound, and knock down the three ball. DiVincenzo, I mean, you and I differ on DiVincenzo. Obviously, I won't rehash that, but I think that's going to be a bigger loss than Randall for the Knicks come playoff times. This is a guy that shot 8.5 threes a game in the regular season, shooting over 40%. He was almost better performed in the playoffs, and I think he was only one of two guys last year to shoot that higher percentage, and with that many threes a game, and you can probably guess who the other one is.
Does he play in Golden State?
He does.
Did he play with DiVincenzo a year ago?
Exactly. Something rubbed off.
Something did rub off. He absolutely cooked last year. We don't need to rehash the DiVincenzo thing. I'm not a huge. He's a quality player. We can agree on that. He's a quality
We
player.
we can just to rehash for a second. He is an asset, as I've been saying. Like that, he was a big part of that trade, that contract, and what he brings to that team, and his shot making ability and the volume he's going to be able to shoot the three. Like the Knicks are going to have a tough time replacing that. I guess Mikal Bridges is going to is going to shoot double the amount of threes he shoots a game. Maybe I don't know.
Bridges offers you a lot. Last year when they traded Grimes, Nick fans were all upset that how they're going to replace Grimes, and then they rolled in this guy McAllister, and McAllister was just as good, if not better, in that same role.
McBride.
What did I say? Yeah, Deuce
Yeah, I know
McAllister, the
what you
former
meant.
running back. Deuce McBride. I'm sorry, Deuce McBride.
Talking about
In
the
that,
New Orleans Saint, right?
yeah, the New Orleans Saint Deuce McAllister, Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride came in that same role and was just as good. I thought he was better defensively than Grimes. I thought he was actually better in the
Yeah,
role, but he was
yeah, yeah,
at least
yeah.
as
He is
good.
for sure.
So guys like DiVincenzo, sure. Are you going to miss them? Sure. Could the Knicks trade that other pick, that 2026 pick, for Dorian Finney-Smith? I don't know. Send me over Mitchell Robinson in that pick. Is that something they'd be interested in? They do want to ship Robinson out. Entertain that, but we'll get back to that trade. Entertain that. Dorian Finney-Smith and that 2026 first, and I'll send you Dorian Finney-Smith. What are your thoughts on that?
You're giving up Dorian Finney-Smith and a first?
No, you're giving me the first to take on Robinson's contract because the Knicks want to move Robinson.
No, I think they'll get better for that.
They'll get better than that.
They're not giving up. They don't need to give up a first round pick unless they're getting someone more significant than Finney-Smith for sure, in my opinion.
Finney-Smith plays that DiVincenzo role. He's going to fill
He
that
does not
same.
shoot. He doesn't shoot 9 threes a game.
I guess that's
Saw what DiVincenzo
I
did
mean,
when, like, they were
all my
missing their
basketball life growing up, that was a bad thing. Now it's a good now it's a great thing.
I'm just saying it's not a great
Yeah.
thing, but when the guy's shooting 40% and he's that much of a lethal threat and he's that confident in his shot and then he's able to do it off the dribble in the playoffs and he's able to kind of slash when you need him to, like that's he's a good player.
What if I gave you one of your other picks back? What if I gave you your 28 pick back? So I give you, I'm just spitballing here. I give you Doe and the 28 pick, and you give me Mitchell and the 26 pick.
Mitchell, I think, is going to go to a team that wants to win.
It's tough because the teams that want to win have bigs already for the most part, right? If you look at the teams that are close, they
But you
have
don't
bigs.
need you need more than one big in a playoff series. You
Now
can't.
you're paying a backup center a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Like who's gonna unless you're willing to take Knicks are willing to take on a bad contract. Who's got 17 million to pay a backup center? Who's in contention? A bad like the Nets could do it, but like who's gonna take on a bad contract? You know what I'm saying? Like what
And
good
he's
team?
not 100% healthy yet, but it's also like we see this in the NFL too. What happens when a center goes down on a certain team? Then what happens to Mitchell Robinson's value
You're right. I
when the
mean, when
season
someone
starts?
goes
And
down, then that's gonna change
yeah,
things,
and
right?
Mitch probably is not going to be playing until a couple weeks or a couple months into the season. And then if he comes back healthy and looks okay, and then all of a sudden by the trade deadline, center X, center Z, goes down with a knee injury, and then all of a sudden it's phones are ringing and people offering first plus for
Let me ask you
Robinson.
this question: who would you rather have, Mitchell Robinson? Assume the money and everything and health are all the same. Robert Williams or Mitchell Robinson?
Um,
It's close, right?
that's yeah, I mean that's tough. Assuming health is wild because neither of them have played a
Now
full
they're getting
season
healthy. Yeah.
since the last presidency. But that's a big toss up. I mean, Mitchell Robinson is one of the best rebounders in the league on both ends of the floor, and he
Especially as an offensive,
can win you.
he might be the
Yeah, he can
premier
win you
offensive
possessions
rebounder.
on the offensive side, which in today's NBA will turn into a free 3 points a lot of the times as teams are scrambling. So that's just a value that he has alone. He's almost like a Dennis Rodman in that ilk. It's like, yeah, he doesn't do a lot for you, but what he does do
He does really
can
well. No,
really
there's
make
a role, but I don't
an
think he's
impact.
trash. I just say he gets hurt all the time, and obviously offensively,
Yeah, he does. He
he
probably will
not
always
even
get hurt.
he's not even great in the lob game because he doesn't have great hands. That was the one thing I never understood about DeAndre Jordan. If you threw DeAndre Jordan a lob, right, he would go up there, one hand, and dunk it.
Hmm.
If you hit him in the chest with a pass, he'd drop it 10 out of 10 times. I never quite understood that. It's like, how do you go up there, one athletic motion, catch the ball with one hand, and throw it down? But if I throw you a chest pass, it hits you in the hands 10 out of 10 times. I never understood that about
I
DeAndre
mean,
Jordan.
we
Drove
could
me
all
insane.
name five of our favorite wide receivers where that's the same exact
That's true.
situation.
That's true. That's true. So back to the trade. What does the trade mean for Minnesota? Obviously, we both agree it makes the Knicks better. The Knicks are now better than they were last week. What does it do for Minnesota? Because they're a
You
title
know,
contender too. They
it's
went to Western Conference Finals last year.
yeah, I know it's really interesting that it's rare you see a title contender that just kind of gave out a contract, a big time contract to a player that was a number one pick and hometown hero, if you
Played
will.
like it. Several time All Star, 25 points per game, basically
Yeah, no,
50
like not
40 shooting every year. Yeah.
I'm not even, you know, he probably inspired a generation of basketball players in Minnesota. Not even to joke. There's young kids. If you're a kid watching basketball in Minnesota the last, 10 years, you watched Carl Anthony Towns. That was your just like, if Brett Favre was your quarterback in Green Bay, it's like Carl Anthony Towns was your star in Minnesota. He was like the last big guy they probably had since KG. So emotionally, whatever with the fans, but um, yeah, he's I don't see how they end up back at the Western Conference Finals with Julius Randle. We've discussed our how I feel, or at least I've told you how I feel about Julius Randle come playoff time. It's tough when you got Gobert and Julius Randle on the court at the same time. Gobert, I mean, Randle just
Uh,
stops the ball. He needs his mismatches on offense. He's not a knockdown 3-point shooter. And then you got two guys on the floor who are not knockdown 3-point shooters. Like I said, I think DiVincenzo is going to be more valuable come springtime for them than Randle. But obviously, I don't think they're back in the Western Conference Finals. It was probably already going to be a long shot because yeah, but yeah, I definitely think they took a step back.
Let me ask you this question, and is this a lineup you can close with in the playoffs? Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo. So you're going to go really big. You're basically playing Ant at the point, DiVincenzo at the 2, Randall at the 3, Naz Reid at the 4, and Gobert at the 5. Can you close with that lineup? Or is that too much of a mess?
You can close your stadium up and go home.
Okay, so you can't. All right, because I'm looking at it, right? Ant's going to handle the ball the last couple minutes of the game anyway, right? The ball is going to be in his hands. Could you go really, really big? Could you play Randall at the 3? You got another shooter. Naz can stretch it. So you got two guys who can stretch it. Can you play with that lineup? Because I think
you're playing with half the floor. You need like as much as I hate it, and we could talk about rules, NBA rules, and what they need to change. Like there needs to be guys come playoff basketball. You need to have guys who are sitting in the corner who can knock down the three, not
can
sitting in the
Naz
corner,
Reid
but you
sit in
need
the
to have
corner?
guys that can knock down the three.
Can Naz Reid fill that role in a playoff game and DiVincenzo sit in the other corner?
No.
Okay. Then that's kind of your answer, right? So then
would you help off Naz Reid if Anthony Edwards was driving to the basket?
So you're gonna live with Naz Reid shooting a corner 3, right? That's what you're telling me.
Would you help off if you're guarding Naz Reid? Would you help off Naz Reid to help
Anthony
with
Edwards
Anthony
has
Edwards
the ball?
if he's driving to the basket
Yeah,
down your
no,
lane line?
you're letting you're letting
Right.
Naz
So
right.
you're just shrinking the floor for your team.
Naz Reid, I always looked at him as kind of like the poor man's version of Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
Karl Anthony
Naz Reid
Towns is
has
so unique,
value.
but Naz Reid is good, and I see what you're saying. Like, I'm a big Naz Reid fan. I love Naz Reid, but Karl Anthony Towns can like not shoot the ball like Steph Curry, but shoot the ball like Ray Allen. Like,
Yeah.
like that volume, that percentage. Like, I'll probably piss off a lot of old fans saying that, but like he's a lethal 3-point shooter, and he's nearly 7 feet tall. Like,
I'm gonna piss off.
that's
I'm just gonna drop this to piss off some old heads. Karl Anthony Towns is better than Dirk Nowitzki.
yeah.
If you want to argue with me, the stats are gonna say that I'm 100% right.
Well, hopefully Cat gets that ring to match it, and you'll definitely have an argument there. But
Dirk's
I mean,
got
yeah,
the
it's
clutch
hard.
gene for sure. He's got the
You're
clutch
arguing a
factor.
guy that's 28 years old. It's hard to do that. We'll let his career play out.
Karl Anthony Towns and Dirk had to play against each other at least for a couple of years, right? So it's not like they're totally different eras. They played
Maybe
against
when
each
one
other.
was a rookie and one was like
Yeah,
on his
but
last legs.
probably a year or two at the very end of Dirk and then the very beginning of Cat. But I'm saying it's
Mhm.
not like they're from. It's not like I'm comparing a guy from the '80s. It's not like I'm comparing Isaiah Thomas to Chef, right? Like they play more kind of in the same era. It was a changing of the era, but Cat is the best shooting big man of all time. Is that a fair statement?
That's like sure, but it's like when people say Rodgers is the best thrower of the football, right? It's
Yeah.
like, but who threw the football and got the most wins, consistently and
Yeah.
or
I always say
had
Rodgers is
touched
better
like
than Brady, but Brady is greater than Rodgers, right? Like if we're just
yeah,
picking,
but you can make the same like Dirk, like who's got a better turnaround jump shot? Who's got a more unstoppable shot in the NBA? Like Dirk says one of the top 5 greatest shots in the history of the NBA, and it's patented and it's his and it's nobody could stop it, and he
yeah, but
beat
you could say the
LeBron
same
James.
thing about Karl Malone's baseline jumper, right? Like his baseline jumper was
No,
good for 20
no,
points a game.
no,
Yes, it
no.
was. Karl Malone's baseline jumper was good for 20 points a game for 20 seasons.
If he's wide open, standing still,
come all over the baseline from 18 feet from the baseline was
Yeah,
money.
yeah, but that doesn't. Yeah, but so am I. Like that doesn't mean anything. I'm talking about like one-on-one score, like Kareem's hook shot, Steph Curry's three, Dirk Nowitzki's
We're putting James
turnaround,
Harden in that
MJ
conversation.
slash
Does James
Kobe's
Harden step back up?
fadeaway.
Does James Harden step back on that list?
It goes in a list with like an asterisk for a
It's an
couple years, and now people really don't know what to do. But yeah,
all right. Um, so you think the trade makes Minnesota worse? Minnesota lost the trade. They didn't
no,
get
well, it
better.
makes them worse next year, but it makes them possibly better in the future just because of the flexibility they have cap wise now. Randall's deal is expiring, and they have a lot of money that they can pivot and pair Anthony Edwards with, superstar X and Gobert, you know what I'm saying? And they have more flexibility now, and clearly they think that is a better shot at winning a championship than Gobert, Cat, and Ant.
So do you view this as kind of a soft reset or a soft rebuild? I mean, you're keeping Ant. Is this like are they kind of forfeiting next year for the future, saying we're not going to really compete for a championship next year, but 2 years from now, and then moving forward for 10 years after that, we're in good shape with Ant.
Yeah, I don't it's hard. I don't like either of those words for it. I know what you're saying, but I think they just made the best move for their franchise in terms of what's best to win a championship in the near future. And they whatever their brain trust decided that the combination of Cat at the four and Gobert at the five. Well, I mean, this is what they envisioned years ago. It's just not going to work out come playoff time. Like we saw, Gobert is out half the time, and Cat almost is. It's hard for him to create space, and while Gobert is always clogging up the lane. So I mean, it's interesting now that Cat's going to be a five possibly again. Now that he is going to be the center role on a. He's going to have to be the rim protector. Granted, he'll have some more. He'll have a better team in front of him defensively to kind of help out on the back end. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch.
I like the idea of playing him at the five and Achua at the four. Or I guess you could reverse that. I mean, it doesn't really matter who's the. But I like the concept of that with him and Achua on the court together.
I
I
don't.
mean, no.
I think you made this trade because you want the spacing. That's why you made this trade, or else, yeah, you with Cat at the five, and like with say Anunoby, right? And Anunoby is a guy that guarded Embiid in the playoffs for multiple possessions and held his own very well. Like Anunoby can easily
Yeah.
play the four. They can go a lot bigger with Bridges and Josh Hart at the two. Now you got Josh Hart at the I'll say three, even though he's basically like a power forward. He's going to
Yeah.
play as big as a power forward. You got a 6'7" Mikal Bridges at the two, guarding the best guard or wing on the other team, and then Brunson. It's like that's the spacing you want when you have Jalen Brunson, who's one of the best one-on-one scorers who can score from. We went over the shot chart anywhere on the
Anyone
court
on the
at any
court.
time. Like you want spacing. That's why they made this trade. You don't make this or else to me, you go get a stretch four that can knock down, shots consistently and keep a Mitch or keep a whoever else they were gonna look or Kessler Edwards. I don't know whatever names were thrown out there to be their center, but I think this trade was because they want spacing for Brunson. They want spacing for now. What's going to be Cat? They want spacing for anyone who's going to have the ball in their hands. And I think that bench unit will be a gritty, will be like a Knicks team we saw last year with a Precious at the five and who else is coming off the bench? Deuce McBride and whatever else, gritty defensive D&3 guys they got over there coming off the bench.
So let me ask you this: I know they're not going to close with Robinson and Cat on the court on the court together, but do they start with Robinson and Cat on the court together?
Hmm. That's it. I mean, starting the season, no, because Mitchell Robinson won't be there to play. So
Yeah.
they're gonna get to test their Cat at the five like pretty early. But I think I mean it probably depends on the matchups. I would just be I don't know. If I'm the Knicks, I would want to play this five out kind of basketball. That's why you made the trade. They can do like we saw what the Celtics did last year, whether it was Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis. Like when that space is out there, it's so much easier to operate and with these elite one-on-one scorers that can um, that the Knicks have. I mean, the Celtics had it too. I'd want to see Cat at the five, and I also wouldn't want to. What happens if Mitch is your starting center for 45 games, then he breaks his foot again, and now you got to you know
Yeah.
change your rotations and reset. It's just like if you almost don't want to rely on Mitchell Robinson at all. And I'm saying not rely on it, but not build your whole rotation around it.
I want to get back to how this affects the Nets. First off, how does it affect the Eastern Conference? The Knicks go from the number 2 team in the East to the number 1 team in the East. I've been high on Boston, but I'm looking at this now, and I think they may have passed Boston. What are your thoughts on that? And how does this affect the Eastern Conference? Are they clearly number 2? I thought they were clearly number 2 before the. I thought Boston was clearly 1. They were clearly 2, and then I liked Orlando, Milwaukee, and Philly at somewhere 3, 4, and 5. Where do you view the Knicks in the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference? Are they 1 or are they still 2?
I mean, I told you this when we spoke after the Bridges trade, where I think the Boston and the Knicks would be a toss-up. This was before Hartenstein was figured out, so we weren't really sure if that was good. But there were still a couple moves to be made, and I thought Knicks and Boston in the playoff series would absolutely be a toss-up. It's going to come down to if is Brunson going to go on a heater like he did with a couple 35 point nights, but I agree with you. Now with the addition of Cat, you now have a second guy that can go for 30 almost any night. And if you're looking at the Knicks, right, or Knicks and Celtics, it's Cat versus Porzingis that's food for Cat. Like Porzingis can't, that's a
Yeah.
mismatch. They're the ones that are gonna have to adjust. Like Cat can guard Porzingis just fine, but vice versa, I don't see the case. They're gonna need another year out of Al Horford if he didn't retire.
That's what I was going to say. Does that change Hartford? Because Hartford, again, it's still a difficult matchup for Hartford, but it's a doable matchup. You can live with that matchup. You can't live with Porzingis on Cat if you're Boston. He's gonna eat Cat up. I mean, Cat's gonna eat
Yeah.
up Porzingis. You can't live with
They
that
would they
matchup
would
for a
attack
7 game
that. You
series.
see that in the playoffs all the time. People attack the weakest defender, and a lot of the times it happens to be Porzingis or a big man in the pick and roll. In this instance, it would just be kind of one on one, like at the playground.
No, so this is obviously not going to help the Knicks pick in 2025. It's going to hurt the pick if anything, but that's not really the later picks. 2028 pick swap, 2029, 2031. What does it mean for the Nets? Is this a team that's better now and worse in those years? Or what does the long-term future look like for the Knicks? And,
I mean, to be
from
honest,
2028 and beyond.
you got to look at the general manager of the Knicks. He's made move after move after move, where even Knicks fans have been, "Hmm?" And then on the basketball court it works out, and
I've
contract
liked every
wise it
single
works
move
out.
that they made, though. Honestly, like over the last couple of years, the Brunson thing, I said, okay, that's top dollar,
Well, you're
but
in Nets
Brunson's a good
world, but
player.
Knicks fans did not.
Yeah.
Julius Randle, how do you think Knicks fans felt about that?
They didn't like, but yeah, they didn't like Randall.
Hell no, coming from New Orleans. When the Nets got KD and Kyrie, and then they got Julius Randle, who couldn't
Yeah.
shoot or couldn't do this and couldn't do that. How do you think they felt when they got Jalen Brunson? They were
It was,
disappointed. Who was
it
this
was,
6 foot? We overpaid. He can't dunk. He
he's not,
blah
and he
blah
can't
blah.
play
This
the
is a
point. He's
league.
a 6 foot. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't hit 3 point shooting. He can't dunk. Same old, same old. And then they traded R.J. Barrett and quickly, and their favorite players, and they got back the best 3-and-D in the league. And then now it's trading Julius Randle, and it's Dante DiVincenzo and breaking up the Nova boys before it even happened. It's like at this point, Knicks fans got to trust their GM that like for the first time, and I'm 31 years old, and in my life, the Knicks and their front office are making move after move after move. That's solid moves. So you got to look at the GM and just think 28, 29,
Hang on one
based on this
second.
track record.
Hang on one
Yeah,
second. Sorry about that, Nick.
yeah, no worries.
Um, I'm sorry.
But based on the track record of the GM, you would just have to think that in 28, 29, they're still going to make good moves. They're still going to be a good team, regardless whether if Cat's their starting center or if Cat's not their starting center. That that this team's going to have Brunson. He's not going to be a bad player in 5 years by any sense of the mean. And they've got a GM that's been making consistently good moves, signing great contracts. Deuce McBride was another one that they seem to be ahead of the curve on that. He's one of the best backup guard contracts in the league. So just based off that, like you kind of want, if you're a Nets fan, you wish Isaiah Thomas was back and GM of the Nets and trading everything for Eddie Curry all over again. It's like they don't really have that at GM anymore.
And I'm looking at his contract. He's locked up until 26, 27, and then he has a $60 million option after 27. Are they going to be able to keep Bridges beyond next year? Like, this is a lot of money for a lot of superstars right now. I'm not sure how you can make this all work with the cap, right? So it kind of feels like if you want to keep Towns, how do you keep Bridges after next year? You know what I'm saying? Or if you keep Towns, it's like someone's got to. You just gave OG the bag. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but you gave him the bag. If you're going to give Bridges the bag, I mean, math it's going to get complicated, right? Once Bridges
maybe
comes
they're
up,
hoping that they can turn the Kentucky Wildcat and turn him into a Villanova Wildcat and make him part of their crew and negotiate that contract down a little bit because $60 million in 2028 at 32 is going to be a lot when he's going to be not a shell of himself, but he's going to be more of a stationary shooter than he is at 28, 29 years old right now. Yeah, you would think Bridges takes a little bit less money to stay here. Like he's not going to be a max guy, and maybe he'll take less money to stay next to Jalen Brunson, just like Jalen Brunson, who took a major hit so that they could make a
his
lot of these
dad's
moves.
also an assistant coach on the Knicks. I want everyone to keep their eye on that. Look,
Who
he
is?
took a big pay cut. I've never seen someone
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah. I've been
prime of
saying
their
that.
career
Uh,
take a pay
his
cut
dad,
like that.
his dad's probably making $200 million this year as an assistant coach.
I said the Nets should have did that with Claxton. Claxton's got a clothing line. Here, Claxton, I'll give you $15 million a year, and I'll buy $15 million worth of suit jackets. What do you say? Let's do it like that.
I've been saying that for the Jets fans have such a big fan base. We could have done that with Reddick. He could have sold some wristbands on his website. We would have bought thousands of them. He would have made his bonus already. He could have been playing football.
I understand Brunson took a pay cut. And look, it's Brunson's money. He can do what he wants. I think what he did was insane, right? If you're a Knicks fan, you love it. But from an outside perspective, I think that's nuts. Bridges is already playing. We always talk about Bridges being on one of the most team-friendly deals in the league,
Why
if
is it
not the
nuts what
most.
Brunson did?
Because you have a very short shelf life to make a lot of money. He was a second-round pick. So he didn't get the bag out of college, right? He didn't really get the bag his second contract with the Knicks. Then he took an extension with the Knicks that is undervalued, right? So he's never actually gotten paid what he's worth ever. You have a very short shelf life. By the time you're 35, maybe 37, that's it. Your time of making money is up. So that's the money you need for the rest of your life. To take that much of a haircut for money you're going to need for the rest of your life, to me, you're welcome to do it. You can take the pay cut if you want.
But Gary, we're
But
not talking about a garbage worker taking 50K when he could have made six figures. Like we're talking about a basketball player who seems to live well below his means in terms of lifestyle, right? Who made a multi-million-dollar contract originally with the Knicks, and he made that contract because he bet on himself. Like
he
he
did.
got
You're right
offered a
about that.
contract. He got offered a contract with the Mavericks where he wanted a certain amount of money. They said no. He balled out in the playoffs. He balled out that season. They came back to him with that money, and he said, "No, I bet on myself. F you guys. I'm gonna go."
Good for
He
him.
went back
Yeah.
he got paid. He went to the Knicks. He bet on himself. I'd argue that he's just doing the same. He's a competitive guy, and he's doing the same thing now. Because if he wins a championship in New York, it doesn't matter what his contract is in 2024. If he wins a championship in New York at any point in his career with the New York Knicks, he will
He's
make
Michael
more money
Strahan. He can
in
have. Yeah, I agree.
2035,
I agree.
2036, 2045, 2047,
2070,
2048.
he'll still be
He will still
celebrating.
be cashing in millions of dollars per
Agreed.
year just just showing up at a fucking bank and talking about how inspiring and motivating that selling shit can be, whatever. You know, he will be
He'll
Michael
be the king
Jordan.
of New
So
York. Derek Jeter,
he took
Michael
that bet.
Strahan.
He
Yeah.
took that bet, and he's fine whether he has $75 million or $120 million when he retires, because he's going for something that he can't pay for. You know, so in this day and age, I applaud athletes that can have that perspective, um, and not run from city to city, or we see with college football that we're in the NIL era where it's just like, quarterbacks are dropping out in the middle of the season because they're not getting. It's just like, oh, this guy likes to compete and he has to play and he sees a vision and he likes his team. And if you're a Knicks fan, you built the statue already.
I do and I don't, right? Like, he's more than welcome to take a pay cut if he wants to. I don't begrudge a guy for taking a pay cut. I'm just gonna say I don't fully understand it either, right? I understand what you're saying, that there's more opportunities for him in New York to stay here, especially if he wins a championship, right? Okay, just in general. All right, I mean,
Well, Gary, I'll
like
ask you this question. Maybe I'll find out how much you value money. Would you rather make $100 million tomorrow, and I told you can, fight for the next 10 years and you'll never win a fight in your life, or you can make $75 million and you can fight for the next 10 years and you'll have a shot to be on top of the world?
yeah, I never made $75 million. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
he's got money and he chose. That's what he chose. He's playing with his boys and he wants a chip.
But like the same thing with Reddick, and I don't even understand what Reddick is doing at this point. But he's not going to play if he's being underpaid. That's clear. Like, I don't begrudge the guy, especially in football. It's a dangerous sport. It's
No, I
violent.
know, but with him, it's just ego. Like
I don't
he
know.
doesn't want to.
You give me your take on Reddick, because I don't even understand. I don't even understand what he's doing at this point
Well, he's
anymore.
not. I think it's just an ego thing. I think it's an ego thing, and partially that he thinks he's going to get hurt, or something, because it's like he obviously can't make back the money he's lost now. There's not the Jets are nobody's giving him
Right.
30 mil this year, and no one's giving him a 5-year extension. He's not getting this massive extension. He's probably more likely going to play on the contract he's at right now. Much as that sucks, but like he's turned this into a whole not him, but just in general, this is now a whole fiasco that he's no longer an asset he was 4 months ago, and nothing has changed really. He hasn't played any football. He
No, he
hasn't
hasn't
missed
played
any
a single
football.
down. Yeah,
He hasn't played
a
a
couple
single
months
down, but he's
older.
lost so much value in the NFL realm. That there's it's just like, I don't see what he's doing, but I also there's no future. It's kind of like Le'Veon Bell, and then we saw him sit a year, and then we saw him get signed with the Jets, and then we saw him retire. Just like that. I could see the same thing happening with him. Someone might give him a contract next year, and then he might retire. I don't know.
I looked at Reddick as, okay, he's going to hold out as long as possible to get as good a deal as he can possibly get. But ultimately, the Jets are in the position of power here, and he's going to have to take a team friendly deal, right? Like you're going to get the best deal you can, but the deal is still going to be team friendly because you don't have any other options, right? And if you hold out, you're going to get the same contract next year. So you can't hold out for a year because it doesn't benefit you in any way.
Sure.
This has gotten it's grown like 12 legs. I don't even understand. Like, I couldn't believe it went beyond week one. I really can't. Like, after week one, if they didn't come to him hat in hand and say, here's what we can offer you, they were never going to do it. So now you just have to take what they can give you. But I want to bring this back to Bridges. Bridges is another guy who's been underpaid. Is he going to take another team-friendly deal to stay with the Knicks? Just because Brunson did it doesn't mean Bridges is going to do it, right? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take. He's already underpaid. Now you
Here's
want
a
to be
novel
underpaid.
idea. Mikal Bridges' mother is a basketball coach.
And
You
okay,
get her on the staff, and you got Mikal Bridges' mom, Jalen Brunson's dad, each making 100 mil, and their kids making like 20. But it's under the cap.
yeah,
That
yeah.
parent's money doesn't matter.
Mrs. Bridges
They'll
is a assistant coach.
Yeah, she's a coach. I'm telling
They did it with Brunson. So long term, this trade, you don't think it's gonna drastically impact the Knicks beyond 2027? Those late picks, the 28, 29, 31 picks, you don't think this trade is going to make a massive impact either way on those picks?
No, not until the Knicks start showing me signs that they're not the Knicks of old, where they're gonna keep making good decisions, and they're at least if unless they want to tank, which you don't see them doing because they've traded all their picks, they're gonna hit a reset button really quick if, God forbid, this plan goes wrong for them, then they'll hit the reset and they're gonna try to win. They're not gonna try to tank while the Nets have their picks. That I just as long as they got Brunson, which he's gonna be there for a while, he clearly likes being there. You would need this to blow up in their faces. You would need, you know, yeah, crazy things to happen.
So it's all that to say that this doesn't really change the Nets. If you thought that those were going to be late picks before the trade, they're going to be late picks after the trade as well. The trade this year, the pick this year, we knew wasn't going to be good, and it probably got a little bit worse, right? Like, or stayed the same, depending. I saw them as the Eastern Conference Finals team.
I mean,
They go
to
to
talk
the
about
Eastern.
health too, this is a guy that's played in the 50s, 30s, 40s. We're talking about recent games played in the last 40. Like, Cat is not 82, 77, 75. Like, this is a guy that's missed half the
Yeah,
season a lot.
a lot
So,
of
like,
times.
this, you could, if you're a Nets fan, you can maybe hope that the next, something happens injury wise. If they're missing a Mitch and a Cat, and now it's like Precious and who else are you grabbing? Maybe you can hope they get a 6 seed or something. And
But
but yeah,
even
it's gonna like
if he's healthy for the playoffs, they're still gonna run through. They're still gonna run through these teams. The
yeah,
talent
yeah,
now
you
is
would
too
think so.
much. Even if they get a
You would think
six
so.
seed,
But look who they played last year in the playoffs. Like that's like Philly dealt with injuries and they look where they finished in the race, and then all of a sudden now you have to face a healthy Philly team when you're a Knicks seed that finished like at the top of the East. So that's just the
Philly
NBA
looks great
sometimes.
on paper. I just don't like Philly. Like I understand on paper they look really good. I just don't like the idea of George and Maxey together. I don't think that's a good combination of players to put together.
I think it can work. I mean, I try to think back of like if Paul George can just go back somehow. I was so much more intimidated of Indiana Paul George than whoever this Clippers Paul George is. Like Indiana Paul George was who took down Carmelo like almost by himself with Roy Hibbert and was just this,
Yeah,
defensive stalwart, and just so he has such a smooth game. I like, um, but yeah, it's not. I don't know. To me, it's more Paul George and Embiid who both slow the game down and um definitely slow the basketball down when they get it and don't necessarily make are not the greatest playmakers. I think Maxi will fit in like a glove almost on in any rotation in the league. He just plays with today's pace. He could
but that's
shoot the ball
just,
from anywhere in the
he's
court.
playing with out tempo way. He wants to go, 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 go. And you got Paul George who wants to get into his drill package. I just who are you giving the
I
ball
mean,
to?
same with Embiid too. But it's like you need that pace. You can't play 1950s basketball. You can't you know walk it up backwards with your back to the basket and then dump it down low to Embiid every possession and think you're going to keep up with the teams that play at such a higher pace and shoot the ball at such an amazing clip. So I love Maxi. I love what he brings to the table, especially when there's times when Embiid doesn't have a great first quarter and he's out the first 6 minutes where Maxi almost plays the entire first and is then all of a sudden you're up 15 before Embiid has even gotten going that
I
night.
want to ask you this question. So Philly in a series, you take Boston over them, you take the Knicks over them. Let's say they played Milwaukee in a 7-game series. Who would you pick? Assuming everyone's
Milwa-
healthy.
Milwaukee or who?
Milwaukee, the Philly.
Or probably Philly at this point.
Milwaukee, Philly or Orlando?
That would be a much better series than people think. Orlando's going to take another step forward this
I
year.
think Orlando is going to be the 3 seed. I think they're the third best team in the East.
They're going to take another step forward this year for sure. Super
The last
athletic.
question I want to ask you to bring it back to the Nets, Cam Thomas. They asked him about his extension. If you were Sean Marks, would you give him a Claxton type contract now to extend him to keep him here? Allegedly, it's been reported there's been GMs who said not even for the league minimum would they sign Cam Thomas. Obviously, he's got a lot of value to this team. He's the only recognizable name really on the team. Would you give him a Claxton 4-year, $100 million contract to keep him here?
The more I think about it, the more I say yes. I lean
Okay, I'm
towards
surprised by your answer.
the more I think about it, the more I say yes because and yeah, I guess I'm swaying my where my stance on Cam Thomas where I've been. Well, not my stance, but just the contract stance where I've been this offseason because the upside is obviously a lot higher than 25 million and I'm willing not to eat it, but if like I said, if he's a 15 point a game off the bench scorer. Worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, he's that. So if I overpay for that for 2 years, and what's most likely going to be a tradable contract too, I'm okay with it. With the upside being he's one of the better one-on-one scorers in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like we just talked about Jalen Brunson earlier. Like we've never seen Cam Thomas perform, but Jalen Brunson was offered pennies from Cuban initially when he was a 12 point a game scorer behind Luka Doncic, and then
Yeah.
when Luka got hurt, he scored 40 and 40 and beat the Jazz in the playoffs, and everyone was like, "Wow, well, you're not accidentally scoring 40 points twice against a defensive minded team in the playoffs." Where it's like, if the Nets are sitting on that type of asset almost, where we've seen him do it in the regular season, then that's worth the risk of just being wrong flat out, and you're a team that you're not sitting on contracts where it's gonna make or break your championship window if you sign him, but it can
Here's what I
it
want
can
to ask
certainly
though.
go
Let's
ahead.
say you get Ace Bailey next season. Let's say we both think highly of Ace Bailey. Does having a guy like Cam Thomas stunt the growth at all of a guy like Ace Bailey? Where does it Cam, and I love Cam. I'm literally wearing a Cam Thomas jersey right now. Is putting him on a team with a budding superstar, a guy that you're putting the franchise in his hands. Does a guy like Cam Thomas slow his growth? Because Cam's still going to take his 30 shots a
I,
game.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but you would like to think at that point it won't. Cam will be in his what year? The fourth year?
This is his fourth, so it'll be his fifth
No,
year.
fifth year with Ace Bailey.
Yeah.
If you have a fifth year player and it's a problem meshing or whatever filling his role with whether it's a new budding superstar or a rookie or whatever it may be, you would think that's more of like a Cam Thomas year one, year two problem. Like I could see Cam Thomas 2 years ago mixed with Ace Bailey. Yeah, that offense would not, you know what I'm saying? But year five under his second year under the same coach and hopefully after a successful 2024 campaign that transition with a budding rookie star would be a lot easier than a year two Cam Thomas, if that makes sense, especially if you just got paid. Everything's a little bit easier after you get paid.
That's true. If you listen, I love Cam. I love his mentality. He thinks he's Kobe Bryant offensively. He really does.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So is like realistically, is he going to defer when Ace Bailey becomes a better basketball player than him? Is he going to defer to him? You know what I'm saying? Is that going to be like a smooth transitioning of
I
power? Is he
mean,
going to
this is
hand off?
this is when playing next to Kevin Durant helps you. Like this, Cam Thomas he came
Yeah,
into the league playing with Kevin Durant, like learning from. Yeah, he there was a time in his life where he wasn't the best player on the team. So we've already seen that happen. That wasn't the case up until he was teammates with Kevin
Cam and
Durant, though.
Yeah,
Like
Kyrie and Cam. Yeah,
Cam at LSU probably did whatever he wanted to do. and then jogged back on defense. Cam and AAU probably did whatever he wanted to do and scored on these kids, and then jogged back on defense. So it's like, yeah, that probably helped mature his game a lot quicker than most playing next to Kevin Durant. So like again, you would hope, and again, it's just we don't know, but you would hope that in year 5 is not an issue with a superstar rookie, but he's willing to serve as that mentor, to a new young guy who's going to help them win games.
Give me your prediction. Points per game and then percentages. Give me your prediction for Cam Thomas at 24-25 season.
Did I do this already with you?
I don't know.
I
We
did
may
this
have done
already with
this.
you, and I'm gonna say something different now, probably. Um, I'm gonna go 23, 4-3.
On what shooting? 45-35?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, 40. I'll give you 47-33.
Okay. I'm kind of in that same. I'm going to say he's going to average a little more. I'm going to say he's going to average 25.7, 4-3, on 45-35. But so here's my a guy that's going to average 25 points a game, top 10, 12 scorers in the league. When do those guys not get paid? The only one that I could ever think of was Isaiah Thomas, little Isaiah Thomas. And he was 5'8" or whatever. Other than that, they all get paid. So if he puts up that type of season in his contract year, he's going to get paid far more next year. Is that crazy to think?
Yeah, but you have him scoring 25 points a game.
Yeah. You had him 23, which is what he averaged
Yeah.
last year in just 31 minutes. You assume he's going to play more minutes this year, right? Than 31 minutes.
You know what the betting lines for Mikal Bridges over under points per game last year was?
I don't know. Let me guess. 24 and a half.
Yeah.
The average
It project
about 20, 19.7 or something
yeah,
like that.
projected him as well to be a 25-point game scorer on the Nets, big volume. He'd be the main primary ball handler to get the volume of the shots, and we all know how that happens. So it's hard to just think a guy can just there's not a lot of guys on the face of earth that can score 25 a night in the league. So like Cam Thomas is one of the better scorers, but it's going to be hard, especially when you're not playing with Kevin Durant next to you. You're playing with
Last year, when you look at points per minute or points per 48 or points per 36, the only guys in the league that are higher than him are the Luka Doncic, the Shays, the absolute elite scorers. The other guys, the Brunson. So he's right there with them when it comes to point just as points per 40, points per minute. He only played 31 minutes. He started the first 25 games coming off the bench. But when you look at the production per minute, the only guys that are ahead of him are those absolute Embiids, Shea, Luka, those absolute killers. There's no answer to that. None of the other guys score more than him per minute.
no, you make a good point, and if he can improve his three ball this year, I think you're right. He's probably on track to get paid if he shoots the three ball well. But again, to that point, if he shoots 30% from three this year, he's gonna wish he took that money. If he's a 6'2" guy that can't shoot the three at an NBA level and is more of a mid range assassin, how much are you paying for that? That gives you nothing on the defensive end.
Then you go back to that contract. A Claxton contract, I think, is reasonable. I value ISO players more than you do. I think I just value ISO players more than you. Especially in a playoff series.
Yeah,
Like
but no, because we had the Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese Halliburton debate, and we all know how that went. And that's an ISO player versus
well, you're comparing point guard. You're comparing the quintessential point guard to a score first point guard. I'm gonna take the pass first point guard who can shoot 40%
yeah.
from
I'm saying,
three.
and I'm taking the isolation player based on how good he was. So I
Okay.
wouldn't say I dislike that. It just depends on how good he hasn't shown me he's that good yet. Like, what if Cam Thomas is 6'2" DeMar DeRozan with
Well,
no defense?
you come. I'm a big DeMar DeRozan truther. So you're asking the wrong person.
But at 6'2",
The size is the problem, right? He's 6'2". He's
because like
strong. He's got a big body.
DeMar DeRozan's so good because he can get to his spot like a foot off the block. You know what I'm saying? Like Cam Thomas doesn't have. He's
Yeah,
not
but
ever getting to that spot on the floor.
Cam's already a better 3-point shooter than DeRozan's ever been.
Yeah, I know. Just this a league where volume 3-point shooter, like that's if he's a 37% 3-point shooter and shooting 5 or 6 threes a game and making, two and a half of them, he's gonna make a ton of money. But if he's, a 1 for 4 3-point shooter or 1.5 for 4 kind of night, like that's what he is throughout the league. That's gonna limit his game. Then he really can only
Yeah.
score in this little patch. He's not, he's 6'2", he can't finish at the rim
Yeah, he's not above the rim
other wings.
player
And
at all. Yeah.
yeah, and if he's not an elite 3-point shooter and he's not an elite defender, it's kind of like in baseball. It's like, all right, well, this guy, like, it's like Dave Kingman. It's like, all right, he can do this, but it's like his every other at bat is like he can only do this.
And you were right about Pete Alonso. Do not bring him back on a big contract. Don't bring Pete Alonso back. He kills
Talked about
every
this a while
rally.
ago, right?
Well, yeah, I wanted to bring him back because I believe that, but he killed like the best thing to happen during for the other team during the rally is Pete Alonso gets up. He kills every rally.
But if I told you it was 7-0 Mets and someone hit a home run, who would you think
Pete
it was?
Alonso. Pete Alonso.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
yeah, I'm still waiting for his one big moment as a Met, and I feel like he's been here for 10 years.
It would be a good day. Tomorrow would be a good day to get that. That would be a great day.
Yeah, like there's like Asdrubal Cabrera has had more Mets moments than Pete Alonso. That's unacceptable.
Sure, for sure. All right, the Mets gonna win tomorrow night, Nate.
Yes, because we have the more experienced pitcher and our bullpen is more rested, and Edwin Diaz is going to throw the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
He's got 2 days rest. Let's go. Let's do it. I think they're gonna win too. I originally thought they were gonna get swept badly, like 6-0, 6-0 kind of swept. But I've changed my mind. I do think they're gonna win. Nate, appreciate you hopping on for me. I appreciate you staying on an hour. I was only planning to do this for a half hour. Appreciate you staying up with me.
I think we talked about every sport and every team in New York. It was a good one.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of bases.
Because I hate them.
Right, of course not.
Appreciate your time, Nate.
Anytime, Gary. Always a pleasure. Good night.